What's up everyone, welcome back to another video. Game week 27 is partly done, the second half of the double game week still to go, but we're now looking ahead to game week 27. Earlier in the week, we released my free hit draft at the moment, so if you haven't watched that, go and check that out right now before continuing in this video. This video is going to focus a little bit more on transfer targets if you're not on a free hit. Some key players that I think you should own if you are, of course, will be in this video, so do keep watching and stay tuned for who those picks are, but also potentially some players that you could buy into your squad ahead of game week 27, but also want in your team long term and not just focusing on this single blank and double game week, depending on if you're looking at Burnley for the double or if you're looking at a blank for the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea. Up on screen now is my current free hit draft. There have been a few tweaks since that last video, so Sterling is someone I've spoken about wanting to get. He's in there. I've had to downgrade Bruno Fernandes to go with Sancho, and then the bench has changed a little bit as well. So Dalot on the bench, El Younisi of Southampton is on the bench as well, and then Ben Johnson seems to be starting for West Ham at the moment with an injury to Soufal, and then Fredericks being subbed off at half time seems to be okay as a cheap option. But that's not what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss 9 top picks, and finally we will also get to the captaincy discussion for game week 27 as well at the very end of the video. So let's dive into it. The first pick that we're going to go through is Coutinho of Aston Villa, 7.3 million as a midfielder. Now, they play Brighton away in game week 27, which originally looked like potentially a difficult fixture. However, Brighton did just concede 3 times to Burnley, and Aston Villa will be wanting to bounce back, and Coutinho is definitely one of the players that can help them do that. They have a double game week in game week 28 as well, so after those announcements last week, the Aston Villa double game week definitely improves the appeal of Coutinho as they do play Southampton and Leeds in that double. He's had 3 returns in 5 matches with 2 goals and an assist. He's on some set pieces, sharing them with Luca Dean as well. They have a good double game week, and they do play in that game week 30 fixture. So anyone who's not planning on playing a free hit in game week 30, and I think if you can save your free hit and not play in that fixture, then I do think it is really worth saving it because it's not going to benefit and get you the maximum points you can. So it's great to be bringing in Coutinho for the next sort of 4 game weeks. The only downside to him is that the form that Aston Villa have shown in recent weeks, right? So they've not really been returning results, actually not scoring as many goals. They rotated the team a little bit going into game week 26, and it didn't work as they lost 1-0 to Watford, a side who are fighting for relegation, right? So Watford do have plenty to play for, but I do think they should have been picking up some points. So a little bit concerning, but they do have a nice run of fixtures, and Coutinho is probably my number 1 pick from an Aston Villa point of view. I'm free hitting this week, but he's definitely on my radar for game week 28. Next up, we have Willock. So now looking at a Newcastle option, and you're probably thinking, why have you got a Newcastle player here? But hear me out, 5.7 million as a midfielder, so a very affordable price for this asset. They have a great run of fixtures over the next 4. So they play Brentford away in game week 27 in the blank game week, a good fixture given the form that Brentford are in. It's a massive game for Newcastle and Brentford. If Newcastle win this, they go above Brentford in the Premier League, and Brentford suddenly get drawn into that relegation battle, whilst Newcastle look like they're escaping much quicker than maybe people thought they would. They also have a double game week, right? So Brighton, Southampton in game week 28 before Chelsea and Everton in game week 29. Now, they're meant to play Crystal Palace in game week 30, but we're imagining that they will go through in the cup, so that will be a blank game week. So worth remembering that. The only issue is he's only shown form in the most recent 2 game weeks, so he's done well in the past 2 with a goal and assist, but before then he didn't perform as well as he did last season. And on top of that, there are potential injuries in that Newcastle team, so the likes of Callum Wilson, the likes of Trippier out. Now, this actually could be both a good and a bad point for Willock, because it means more of the weight may fall on his shoulders now that he's got that starting spot back. I quite like him as a pick. He has great short-term fixtures and a double game week, so if you are free hitting game week 30 especially, he's worth a look for sure. Next up, we have gone with the cheap option, that is Broja of Southampton, 5.5 million for this forward. There is literally not very much I can say negative. Not confirmed to play in game week 30 was the only tiny negative that I could come up with. They have to lose to West Ham in the next round of the FA Cup, and then they will play in game week 30 as well against Burnley. Literally, there's nothing I can do to put you off buying Broja. They play Norwich this week, which is a great fixture, probably the best fixture you could ask for at the moment. Aston Villa and Newcastle in game week 28 as a double game week. Watford Watford, Burnley and Leeds after that. He can be slightly rotation prone. However, the combination he's building with Che Adams up front seems to be securing his starting place every single week now. Armstrong doesn't seem to be coming in the side, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But at 5.5 million, you really shouldn't be complaining. He is such a good, cheap starting option, as you can see there. So an absolutely great option, one that I'm definitely targeting on a free hit in game week 27, but also one that I'm considering buying into my team in game week 28, given their double game week as well. Next up on the list, a premium forward. So gone from the cheapest forward to one of the most expensive forwards in Harry Kane of Tottenham. So 12.2 million. It is quite a lot to spend, but given the 2 goals that he scored and the maximum bonus points against Manchester City, could we be seeing the return of maybe the Harry Kane and Son Heung-min that we saw last season be quite so effective for so many of us in FPL? A good run of fixtures. So they play Leeds in game week 27. They're a team that have conceded more goals in recent weeks than any other team, before Everton at home in game week 28. Another really nice fixture given the form that Everton are in. They then have a double game week of Manchester United and Brighton in game week 29, likely to blank in game week 30, but then Newcastle at home in game week 31. Spurs can be unreliable, so we are basing this off the form that they showed in game week 26 against Manchester City. They do have another game which may be worth looking and seeing how they perform against Burnley there, but they have great fixtures, double game week. He seems to be returning to form. He's on penalties. He's shown really good stats in recent weeks, but game week 26 is the first week he's finally shown some return, so could be a great time to go on him, when I think a lot of people will focus on going with Son. Potentially I think Kane could be a bit of a differential going forward. Next up on the list, we do have Son, his teammate, 10.8 million, so slightly cheaper. He's on set pieces as well, which is a slight bonus over Harry Kane, but Harry Kane does take penalties. Son also has the extra point for a goal, the extra point for a clean sheet as well, plus being that slight £1.5 million cheaper than Harry Kane. He has just returned from injury, but it does look like he's fully back up to speed and ready to start every single game. Very similar positives and negatives between Kane and Son. If I had to pick one between the two of them, I'd probably just about favour Son because of that slightly cheaper price. It's slightly easier to move to other midfielders like De Bruyne, like Sterling, like Bruno Fernandes if it doesn't go to plan. Whereas if you don't like Kane, you have to downgrade him. So I'd probably favour Son very slightly, but it completely depends on which is easiest to go and buy with your team structure. Next up on the list, we have another Southampton option. So we talked about Broja, but here we've got James Ward-Prowse of Southampton coming in at 6.5 million. So he's on set pieces and penalties for him, and we know how good he is at both of them. One of the best set piece takers, both from sort of direct free kicks, but also his corners, his crossing into the box as well. Is a great route to FPL points with goals and assists for Ward-Prowse. The only issue against him is that he isn't that great from open play. He's so good from set pieces and penalties, but his open play returns is maybe not as much as you'd want from him, which means he has to rely on those penalties, those free kicks, those corners being given in order to get the returns that maybe you want from him. There are a lot of other mids that he's also competing with as well, so it is much easier to fit in the likes of Broja, who's up front. Ward-Prowse is competing against a lot of very top midfielders at the moment, but they do have a great run of fixtures. Again, like we spoke about with Broja, Norwich this week, a double in game week 28, Watford in game week 29, potentially playing in game week 30 if they do lose to West Ham in the Cup before Leeds in game week 31 as well. So a big differential at the moment. A lot of people looking at Broja for Southampton, but I do think that the golf swinging Ward-Prowse could definitely be a good option to go with over the next few weeks. Next up on the list is Weghorst, who was a big differential in game week 26 with their double, but is likely to be a very highly sought after asset going into game week 27. And I definitely agree with this, and I think he should be one of your top priority transfers this week. I expect him to be the most captained option given he goes through the remaining game week 26 uninjured. He's the main goal threat. He got a goal and assist against a Brighton team who are normally very difficult to break down, and he's playing for a team who are fighting for relegation, which is always an important thing to consider when buying assets towards the end of the season. Now, we've still got about 12 game weeks left, but Burnley need to be picking up points absolutely and wherever they can get them. So picking their main goal threat and their striker against two teams in Crystal Palace and Leicester who concede more headed chances and more chances from set pieces than any other team in the league could be an absolute brainwave for anyone who decides to bring him in. Definitely one I'm considering on my free hit in game week 27. And even if you're not on free hit, he's worth considering because he does play Chelsea in game week 28, but it is followed by Brentford away in game week 29. The only negative to consider here is that Burnley do struggle for goals, although in recent game weeks they've started to score a few more now that Weghorst is in the side, so hopefully he continues to turn the tide on that trend for Burnley. Next up, we have a Wolves defender. So we have included Wolves defense as a whole because it may depend on your team structure about who you're able to go and get. We'll talk about them individually, but as a team, they've been so good defensively. They've not conceded more than one goal at all since game week 11 when they conceded twice to Crystal Palace, which is just crazy. Only conceding one goal or keeping a lot of clean sheets, which they have done in recent weeks. The Wolves defense in general tend to get a lot of bonus points because they don't tend to score a lot of goals, which means the defenders, making tackles, making passes are often very good for bonus points. It tends to be Semedo who ranks at the top, but even the likes of Saiss, Aït-Nouri, Kilman and Cody can all get amongst the bonus points. But actually the one that I've got in my team at the moment is Jose Sarr in goal. And I think he's great with the amount of saves he can make, as he showed with a 4-point return so far in game week 26 because of making 6 saves. Literally nothing I can do to put you off. They have a great run of fixtures. West Ham this week, followed by an incredible double game week in game week 28 of Crystal Palace and Watford. Everton after that, then Leeds at home in game week 30. The big blank game week they are confirmed to play. If I had to bring them in, I do really like Aït-Nouri if we think he's going to play. He did pick up a potential knock in the first part of that game, so worth bearing in mind. The premium options in Saiss and Semedo are more reliable for starts, and then if you need a cheap option, then Kilman and Cody are the ones that I would go with. So my top pick, probably Saiss in the defence for the goal threat that he offers, and as a cheap option, I'd probably go with Kilman. But they're all really good and pretty nailed options I would consider bringing into your team this week. And the final pick before we go on to captaincy is another Wolves player, is Jimenez at 7.5. I almost put Neto or Podence in here, but I do think the amount of midfield options makes it hard to fit them in, whereas Jimenez is competing against a much shorter and narrower field of forwards. He's involved in 45% of Wolves' goals so far this season when he's on the pitch, so he basically is involved. If they score twice in a game, he's guaranteed to get at least a goal and assist, which we saw in game week 26 when he returned an assist in the first game when they scored twice. 7.5 million is still fairly affordable, and they have a great run of fixtures to come. West Ham away, and then the double as we saw with the defenders, Everton, and then confirmed to play against Leeds in game week 30. A Leeds side who are conceding again so many goals, more goals than any other team in recent weeks. The only thing is they don't tend to score a lot of goals. So yes, if they score twice, he tends to be involved in 45% of them, so he gets a return if they score twice or so, but they don't often score more than 2 goals. So the haul and the sort of 10 plus digit returns is not something you're necessarily going to get with Jimenez, but I do like him. He's in my team and I'm happy to own him going forward. So those are some top transfer targets for you, but before we finish, let's talk about that game week 27 captaincy, which is a little bit up in the air, and whether you should be maybe targeting a double game week player or focusing in on a single game week player with a very nice fixture. So for me, there are 4 top captaincy options. Well, 5 if you include Son/Kane. Weghorst for me, the double game would be the Burnley player that I'm going with. They have 2 good fixtures in games that they could score headed goals with, and Weghorst, being the height that he is definitely going to be involved. I don't like them enough from a defensive point of view to go captaining someone like Pope. Mahrez, I think, is set to start for Manchester City in a game which is massive for them to revive their sort of title charge that they have been on, given that Liverpool could be as close to just 3 points behind them if they beat Leeds midweek. I think Mahrez will start. He's on penalties as well, so he's the Manchester City option I've gone with. Bruno Fernandes, Watford at home, again, another option. He's been really good in recent weeks. Sancho, potentially a differential, but I think Bruno will be so highly owned, and he's shown in recent weeks when they've moved back to that 4-2-3-1 formation that he can be a great option. And then Son and Kane against that Leeds team. If I had to captain a player from that, I would probably go Kane, but owning him for a longer period of time, Son is the one that I would bring in. So those are my top 4, but in terms of ranking, I put them like this. Weghorst is currently my free hit captain, with Mahrez being my vice captain, Bruno number 4, and Son/Kane being 3rd in my ranking. So some top players, some transfer targets, as well as captaincy all rolled into one video. We are trying to get to 16k subscribers before the end of the month. So if you have enjoyed, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications as well so you get that reminder for live streams and videos. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back again very soon.